So, imagine you are an Allied fighter pilot in the middle of World War II.
Okay, that is an incredibly stressful place to start.
Right. You are in this high-stakes, terrifying dogfight. You're flying this state-of-the-art machinery, basically pushing the absolute limits of 1940s engineering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then suddenly, this glowing metallic cylinder just casually starts pacing your wing.
Well, just out of nowhere.
Exactly. It has no visible wings, there's no exhaust plume, and it just effortlessly outmaneuvers your aircraft.
Oh.
So what do? Do you shoot at it? Do you report it to your commanding officer?
Or, do you just stay perfectly quiet so they don't ground you and call you crazy?
Exactly.
And that is the ultimate tension of this entire subject. You are constantly forced to choose between trusting your own eyes and trusting the established boundaries of reality.
Which is a really tough spot to be in.
It really is. I mean, for a long time, talking about an experience like that meant risking your reputation, your career, and honestly, sometimes your sanity.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are wading into some deeply mysterious waters, and we're actually looking at it through a very unexpected lens.
Yeah, this source material is fascinating.
It's totally wild. Our sources today aren't declassified Pentagon files or, like, sci-fi novels. We're actually looking at excerpts from an English language learning textbook.
Which is such a unique way to approach this.
Right. This material includes detailed vocabulary breakdowns, historical reading passages, and this very specific teacher-student dialogue script that's focused entirely on the history of unidentified flying objects.
And using an educational language text is actually a brilliant way to frame this topic.
How so?
Well, when you are teaching a language, you are forced to be precise with definitions. You have to strip away all that cultural baggage. And precision is, unfortunately, usually the first casualty in any conversation about this phenomenon.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to use this educational framework to surgically separate the Hollywood tropes from documented historical phenomena.
I love it.
We are going to trace a timeline that starts with ancient civilizations, moves into the cockpits of World War II, hits the paranoia of the Cold War, and lands squarely on modern military conformations.
A full historical sweep.
Yep. Because we want to understand how human language and institutional reactions have evolved, even as the core mystery remains, completely unsolved.
We should probably start right where the teacher-student dialogue in our source starts, which is by defining the terms.
Good call.
The foundational concept presented in that script is the definition of the word UFO itself. It simply stands for Unidentified Flying Object.
Right. Which sounds obvious, but people forget that.
Exactly. It's a technical aviation term for an unknown object in the atmosphere. In the text, the student assumes the term automatically means an alien spaceship, and the teacher actually has to correct that misconception.
Yeah, because technically speaking, a rogue weather balloon or a classified drone or even like a plastic grocery bag caught in a weird updraft that is a UFO until someone identifies it.
Exactly.
It is literally a placeholder term for human ignorance.
And it's an important hurdle to clear right away. Because once you remove the little green men from the equation, you can look at the historical timeline presented in the text objectively.
Right.
And the text points out that human beings have been seeing and really struggling to describe these objects since antiquity.
Yeah, let's look at the earliest example they provide. The text takes us all the way back to the 15th century BCE in Egypt.
It's a long time ago.
We are talking about ancient Egyptian texts from 3,500 years ago. The specific translation used in the text describes, quote, foul-smelling circles of fire and discs in the sky.
What's fascinating here is the sensory detail.
Yeah, the smell part is weird, right?
It is. Foul-smelling implies a physical mechanism. It suggests some sort of combustion, a chemical exhaust, or something sulfurous and metallic.
Not just a trick of the light.
Exactly. And circles of fire and discs, I mean, they are attempting to describe a luminous geometric shape using literally the only vocabulary available to them at the time.
Right, and the timeline doesn't stop in ancient Egypt. We jump forward to 1516 CE in Nuremberg, Germany.
A very famous case.
Yeah, the text notes that the entire town reported seeing over 200 objects in the sky of differing shapes. They specifically listed cylinders, spheres, and spinning disks.
Wow.
But here is where I kind of want to push back on this historical framing a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Ancient people, and even people in the 16th century, they didn't have a conceptual framework for aircraft or satellites or drones. It feels a bit like a medieval peasant trying to describe a smartphone using only the vocabulary of blacksmithing and witchcraft,
That's a great analogy.
So how heavily should we really weigh their descriptions of spinning disks or circles of fire?
Well, the lack of modern vocabulary is actually exactly what makes these accounts so compelling.
Really? How so?
Yes, a medieval observer didn't have words like fuselage or luminescent or aerodynamics,
Yeah.
but look at what they're describing geometry.
Ah, okay, the shapes.
Right. Across centuries, separated by entirely different cultures, languages, and belief systems, the underlying shapes reported remain remarkably consistent. Spheres, cylinders, disks.
So they aren't defaulting to cultural mythology. They aren't describing like winged demons or golden chariots.
Precisely. They are describing geometric primitives. The fundamental physical description of the phenomena aligns across history.
That makes a lot of sense.
It suggests they were witnessing a physical occurrence that completely defied the natural phenomena they were intimately familiar with. I mean, they knew what meteor showers or the aurora borealis looked like.
Yeah, they knew what a shooting star was.
Exactly. This was something else.
So for centuries, these sightings basically existed purely as localized folklore, right? Just these
Yeah.
strange historical anomalies.
Pretty much, yeah.
But the transition into the mid-20th century changes everything. The moment human beings started putting our own advanced machinery into the sky during World War II, this phenomenon stopped being mythology.
Oh, overnight.
It instantly became a matter of tactical survival.
Right. Human flight forced a massive evolution in how we process the unknown. Suddenly, the skies were crowded. Sightings became a matter of national security and structured military intelligence.
The text describes how fighter pilots during World War II, who, let's remember, were highly trained observers whose survival depended on accurately identifying aircraft silhouettes, at a moment's notice they started reporting these glowing things.
The Foo Fighters.
Exactly. They described them as luminescent and cylindrical UFOs at high altitudes. And yeah, they gave them that nickname, the Foo Fighters.
And the tactical situation surrounding those Foo Fighters is critical to understand. You have Allied pilots and German pilots operating in incredibly high-stress, life-or-death environments.
The worst environments imaginable.
Right. And they are both seeing these glowing cylinders pacing their aircraft, matching their speed, and exhibiting maneuverability that conventional planes simply couldn't achieve back then.
The textbook highlights a really brilliant detail about human psychology here.
Oh, about who they thought was making them.
Yeah. Initially, both sides presumed these objects were highly advanced secret weapons created by their enemies.
Which is totally logical.
Right. The Allies assumed the Germans had engineered some terrifying new drone technology, and the Germans assumed the Allies had deployed a new psychological weapon.
Because in the middle of a global conflict, you naturally project your fears onto the unknown. You assume the worst-case scenario.
But then the war ends. The intelligence agencies compare notes. And it was only when they realized that both sides were seeing them, and neither side had the technology to build them, that military committees concluded these occurrences were not man-made.
There's a huge shift.
Huge! Yet, as the text states, no clear alternative explanation was forthcoming.
This is the exact moment the modern UFO paradigm is born.
Yeah.
You have a vast, sophisticated military apparatus officially recognizing a genuine unknown operating in their airspace.
They investigate it, they rule out enemy technology, and then nothing.
Exactly. They are left staring at a blank space. They validate the phenomenon as a physical reality while completely failing to identify its origin or how it even flies.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the big watershed year. Building on the military encounters of World War II, the narrative crashes headfirst into 1947.
Oh, yeah. 1947.
This is the year that permanently altered public perception and basically forced the U.S. government into a defensive posture for decades.
1947 is essentially year zero for modern UFO lore. Everything we think about when we hear the term originates right here.
The textbook outlines two massive events from that year. The first involves a civilian pilot named Kenneth Arnold.
Right.
He's flying his plane over the Cascade Mountains, and he reports seeing 9 silvery circular objects. But it is his description of their movement that accidentally changed history.
This part is so fascinating from a linguistics perspective.
It really is. He told reporters that they flew like a saucer would if you skipped it across the water.
Right, so he's giving a description of flight dynamics. He's not giving a description of the object's physical design.
Exactly. But the press totally misunderstood the quote. They took that description of movement and applied it to the shape.
And boom, a legend is born.
They coined the term flying saucer in the headlines the very next day. Kenneth Arnold even titled his later book The Coming of the Saucers. A simple misquote literally designed the entire aesthetic of 1950s science
It's
fiction.
incredible.
But while Arnold unwittingly gave us the name, another event that exact same year gave us the ultimate mystery: Roswell.
Roswell, New Mexico. The text identifies it as the most famous case in United States history.
Now, think about how you would react to this if you were reading the morning paper in 1947. You've just survived a world war, the atomic bomb has just been invented,
Everyone's on edge.
the skies are suddenly full of classified, terrifying new technology. Then, an object crashes onto a sheep ranch near the Roswell Army airfield,
Right.
and the commander of that base officially issues a press release claiming that a, quote, flying disc had been recovered.
And let's contextualize that base commander for a second. He was responsible for the 509th Bomb Group.
Remind me what that was.
That was the only nuclear bomber wing in the world at the time. This is not a man prone to whimsy or exaggeration.
Definitely not.
He authorizes a press release stating, permanently on the record, that they possess a flying disc.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because just hours later, the commanding general of the 8th Air Force issues a sudden, aggressive retraction.
Oh, the famous pivot.
Yeah. He asserts the recovered material was merely a common weather balloon.
Right.
I mean, issuing a retraction about a flying disc in 1947 was like pulling the fire alarm in a crowded theater, waiting for everyone to stampede, and then calmly announcing it was just a toaster.
That is a perfect way to put it.
The panic is already out there, and that sudden, clumsy shift in tone only makes people suspect you are hiding the actual fire. You don't just mistake a standard weather balloon for a flying disc, put out a global press release, and then say, oops, our bad.
And the textbook notes that the eyewitnesses absolutely rejected that weather balloon narrative.
They weren't buying it at all.
Not even a little. A major in the Air Force and the rancher who initially found the debris both claimed to see materials of unknown origin metals that couldn't be cut or burned and that supposedly returned to their original shape when crumpled.
Wow.
Furthermore, the text mentions that some claim to see the bodies of non-humanoid organisms.
Non-humanoid organisms. The text uses that specific clinical language instead of the word aliens, which somehow makes it sound so much more unsettling.
It really does. It strips away the sci-fi gloss. And this single incident creates a massive, permanent fracture in public trust.
I can see why.
The military's sudden pivot from "we have a flying disc" to "it's just a weather balloon" planted a seed of institutional doubt that would grow for decades.
And then this public frenzy fueled by the Arnold sighting, the Roswell crash, and this sudden influx of photographic evidence, it forced the government to act. It launched them into this decades-long game of deflection with the public.
The most prominent example being Project Blue Book, which was a systematic study of UFOs conducted by the United States Air Force.
Right. They ran Project Blue Book for years, investigating thousands of sightings, before officially disbanding it in 1969.
And there's stated reason for closing it down.
A lack of concrete evidence. But the government kept attempting to close the book on these old cases. Like in the 1990s, the Air Force released this massive report claiming the Roswell crash wasn't a standard weather balloon after all, but actually something called Project Mogul.
Ah, Project Mogul.
Ugh.
This is a fascinating piece of history. It was a top-secret military operation that involved flying high-altitude balloon trains equipped with specialized acoustic microphones.
But wait, how does a microphone on a balloon have anything to do with top-secret military operations?
So they flew these balloons into a specific layer of the atmosphere called the tropopause.
Okay.
This layer acts like a global acoustic channel. It allowed these incredibly sensitive microphones to detect the low-frequency acoustic shock waves of Soviet atomic bombs detonating halfway across the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was cutting-edge, highly classified surveillance tech.
So the military is basically saying, okay, we lied in 1947 when we said it was a flying disc. And we lied later that day when we said it was a normal weather balloon. But trust us now, 50 years later, it was actually this secret acoustic balloon.
Exactly. And when a government utilizes a domestic cover story to protect a legitimate national security asset like Soviet nuclear detection, they inadvertently create the perfect breeding ground for conspiracy theories.
Because you can't tell what's real anymore.
Right. To the public eye, the machinery of a cover-up looks exactly the same, whether you are hiding a classified spy balloon or a crashed extraterrestrial craft.
And the government's track record of transparency certainly doesn't help their case here. The supplemental reading in our sources highlights another incident in 1965 in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, the acorn object.
Yeah. Locals saw a fiery object streak across the sky, and this acorn-shaped object crashed in the woods. The military immediately swarmed the area, cordoned off the entire town, kept civilians away, and eventually drove out with it on a flatbed truck.
And their official explanation was
A meteorite.
a meteorite that apparently required an overwhelming military response and the confiscation of local property.
Sure, right. So, years later, an organization called the Coalition for Freedom of Information, or CFI, actually sued NASA to release the records of what happened at Kecksburg.
And the text notes that the CFI's members weren't just anybody.
No, they included high-profile individuals like John Podesta, the former chief of staff to President Clinton. These aren't internet message board conspiracy theorists. These are high-level political figures demanding scientific inquiry.
They utilized the Freedom of Information Act to try to force transparency through the legal system.
And they actually won the lawsuit in 2009. But the files NASA released were heavily redacted and entirely inconclusive.
Of course they were.
But the absolute kicker, NASA claimed in court that two crucial boxes of files regarding the Kecksburg incident had simply been lost.
Convenient.
Now, I want to look at this purely from an organizational standpoint for a second. Couldn't the lost files just be standard bureaucratic incompetence?
I mean, it's possible.
We have all worked in giant organizations. Sometimes a box of files isn't a massive, coordinated government cover-up. It's literally just a clerk putting a box in the wrong storage locker in 1972 and forgetting about it.
Bureaucratic incompetence is absolutely a real and common factor. But in this context, intent almost doesn't matter.
Why not?
When lost files becomes the official answer in a court-ordered release regarding a highly controversial military event, it is absolutely devastating to public trust. It creates an information vacuum.
Yeah, people fill in the blanks themselves.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly explains a jarring statistic cited in the textbook. A 2012 poll showed that nearly 80% of Americans believe the government is hiding UFO information.
80%. I mean, in modern society, getting 80% of the population to agree on anything is practically a miracle.
The government's own historical actions, the misplaced files, the blacked-out reports, the contradictory press releases stretching back to Roswell, they've trained the public to become fiercely skeptical of the official narrative.
Right.
Where there is no clear, transparent data, disinformation naturally thrives.
Which makes the modern era we are living in right now so incredibly jarring.
It really is a paradigm shift.
We move from decades of historical cover-ups, weather balloons, and missing boxes in archives to the modern era where the script has violently flipped. The military is now publicly admitting these objects are real.
After essentially gaslighting the civilian population since 1947, the institutional stance has undergone a complete reversal.
The textbook details that as recently as 2021, United States Navy officials confirmed that leaked photos and videos of UFOs circulating online are indeed real.
Just casually dropping that bombshell.
Yeah, these are authentic military captures of unidentified aerial phenomena taken by fighter pilots. Now, they refuse to comment on what they are, but they confirmed they aren't hoaxes and they aren't ours.
Right.
Furthermore, the text quotes John Ratcliffe, a former director of national intelligence, stating publicly on television that there are many, many more sightings that simply have not been made public.
And the censored data in those 2021 videos is what makes this such a profound moment of validation.
Because it's not just a blurry photo anymore.
Exactly. The military apparatus is officially stating that they're targeting pods, which are the most advanced tracking technology on the planet, are picking up physical objects that actively defy our current understanding of physics.
Right, they aren't just hovering, they are dropping tens of thousands of feet in seconds without creating a sonic boom.
Yep.
They have no visible wings, no flight control surfaces, and infrared cameras show absolutely no heat plumes from an engine exhaust.
They operate in ways that render our most advanced aircraft completely obsolete.
So what does this all mean? Consider how this modern validation reframes everything we just discussed. If the 2021 Navy videos are real, physical objects operating beyond our physical models, do we have to look at the 1516 Nuremberg spheres in a completely new light?
It's a great question.
What about the World War II Foo Fighters?
It forces a retroactive continuity check on all of human history.
Wow, yeah.
If we accept that unexplained, highly advanced aerial objects are an empirical reality today, it becomes intellectually dishonest to dismiss the fighter pilots of World War II, or the citizens of Kecksburg, or even the ancient Egyptians as merely hallucinating or misinterpreting the weather.
It's like finding out a ghost story you've been told your whole life is actually a peer-reviewed documentary.
That's exactly what it feels like.
The vocabulary the textbook taught us to use terms like occurrence and photographic evidence, it all snaps into sharp focus. We are no longer presuming these occurrences are just Cold War paranoia. We have radar and infrared evidence from the Pentagon confirming they exist right now in our airspace.
It is a thread of the unknown that runs through the entire tapestry of human civilization.
It really has been an incredible journey through this educational material.
It has.
We started with 3,500-year-old Egyptian texts describing circles of fire. We moved through the Renaissance skies of Germany, the high-stakes dogfights of World War II, the disastrous public relations birth of the flying saucer in 1947, and this endless maze of government secrecy.
Quite the timeline.
And we arrive at modern Navy pilots capturing these physics-defying objects on infrared cameras.
And the main takeaway, the undeniable truth from all these sources, is that regardless of origin, whether they are atmospheric plasma anomalies, deep black budget drone technology, or something from somewhere else entirely, the phenomenon itself is real.
We have been looking up at the sky and wondering what is looking back down at us for millennia.
Which leads to a final, profound consideration based on the very end of our source material.
Oh, let's hear it.
In 2015, the U.S. Air Force declassified and released 130,000 pages of Project Blue Book files.
That's a lot of paper.
Around the same time, the UK government released 7,000 pages of their own UFO reports.
130,000 pages. That is an absolute mountain of bureaucratic effort. I mean, that represents decades of interviews, investigations, and analysis.
Hundreds of thousands of pages gathered over half a century by the most well-funded intelligence agencies in the history of the world. And yet, the text notes there was no smoking gun.
Unbelievable.
No conclusive evidence pointing to a definitive answer. Which leaves us with this thought. If all that data, all that time, and all our incredible modern scientific advancements still cannot provide a basic explanation for what is flying in our skies, is the greatest mystery the objects themselves, or the limits of our own modern science to comprehend them.
That is a staggering thought. The next time you look up at the night sky and you're mentally categorizing everything you see, a commercial flight, a satellite, a star, just remember that our collective understanding isn't nearly as complete as we like to pretend.
Definitely not.
Sometimes a light in the sky is exactly what you think it is, but sometimes it's a 3,500-year-old mystery, effortlessly defying gravity, still waiting for an answer. Thanks for diving deep with us.